What's your impression of the policy roadmap? I mean, are you moving quickly enough? Do you think you need to go a little bit faster?
We are moving quickly enough. In fact, I think in some ways we're possibly moving too quickly. We are not here to be a protest party anymore. We're here with the possibility of them being the party of government. So therefore we had to get it right.
You've known Nigel Farage for a very long time. What do you think the media gets wrong about him?
He's actually...
How's it been joining the board of Reform UK, Gawain?
Fascinating. It's about 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
It's meant that I've lost most of my media income because now I'm official. They won't pay me, and it's unpaid.
Great. But what are you doing?
Mostly fielding issues pertaining to branches, members, things of that sort. They elected us, and so therefore that we are their representatives. So makes
yeah, because I mean, I saw your leadership pitch. I saw Go with Gawain. You said this is grunt work, isn't it? It's not the sexy, fun stuff.
I think I used the slightly odd term. I should be the gristle between the bones of the party, but that is the purpose of it. It's not. Yeah. It's to be oil. We're not cogs. We're the oil between the cogs. And that is useful. Yeah, the Go with Gawain was great until I wanted to put out a thing saying thank you.
Right. Well, what's going to do that?
No, first there was a campaign. If somebody has voted for me and gets out, I've gone with Gawain. It was felt that was probably not a phrase that we should use. So we had to think of something else.
Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, we were just talking off air about the Reform Conference. Yeah. Now, like I said to you, Reform conferences, conferences in general, it's an opportunity to frequent the bars, but you weren't really doing that this time, were you? What were you doing? You were doing serious work this time.
I did 4 panels. So Institute of Government and CPS and TFA and a couple of one other on the Friday. On the night before, I was involved in some event. No, it was busy, and it was impressive. I thought that the scale up, year on year scaling up, is extraordinary. If you think 2 years ago, National Conference, on the night before, at about 11 o'clock, somebody realised that the hall in the Hilton on Edgware Road that we were using they'd given us the chairs, but they hadn't laid them out. And so at 11 o'clock at night, 2 or 3 volunteers discovered themselves just putting the chairs out. That was the level of organisation where we're at. Yeah. And now look at it. 2 years later, it's the chalk cheese. Yeah. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, because you've been there in various forms.
In different iterations.
Different iterations. For how long? Since 2009? 2004. So you've got some stories to tell then. You've seen it.
There were times when UKIP was growing, 2013, Doncaster, there was a serious conference, but never has it been like this. I mean, we're at the peak, 2013-14, UKIP had 45,000 members. I suspect by this weekend we'll have 250,000 members. Yeah. That scale is different. The fact that you've got something like Heathrow sponsoring the business lounge, the fact that you had 200 plus business reps wandering around, a whole bunch of diplomatic reps wandering around, it's just a completely different ballgame. Yeah. It is quite funny that most of the business people were sent up with a number 2 string, and they were there sort of wandering around with very long spoons. So that was quite amusing, but that will change. Yeah. Say we have in the launch of the council elections, Welsh election, Scottish election, say we have a councillors conference. I suspect there's going to be a lot of business who are going to want to be involved in that, because obviously 10 counties, 10 councils, that's a lot of money that we control. So therefore, a business is still a bit nervous.
I was going to ask about that. Are you noticing a general change in attitude towards the party from the business community?
Absolutely. Clearly, the fact is there were 200 of them there, and there's some interesting conversations to be had. But there is still a nervousness. I was talking to somebody only the other day about how they were interested in having a dinner with either Farage or Zia or Richard, but they're a bit worried that Reform will leak that they'd met.
Oh, really?
So we want to talk to you, but yeah, I was expecting a lot of the business people to wander around the conference wearing tape like SAS guys in photographs. But that's changing. You would be an idiot in business if you were not engaging with the Reform today. And most people in business aren't idiots.
Well, they can see the polls like everyone else, right? Yeah. What's your sense? You're not going to like this question, but what's your sense for 2029 or whenever the election is? How many seats are you Yeah.
Piece, string, how long?
Yeah.
So far ahead. I don't know if you saw the Times today.
Yeah.
It's talking about 3 years out. It's talking about, oh, well, they might lose 60 seats due to tactical voting. The idea that the Times is saying we might lose 60 seats because of tactical voting. We have 5.
Right.
And they're talking about us losing 60 seats, still being the largest party in the Commons.
Yeah.
It is now almost banked in. But it isn't. Nothing is banked in. Today we had a disobliging poll, but just as I say about friendly polls, don't believe a poll that makes you smile. Likewise, don't believe a poll that makes you frown.
I mean, you've got a lot of work to do on the ground in terms of policy. What's your impression of the policy roadmap so far? Obviously, this week it was all about we're recording this in the week.
Yep.
The indefinite leave to remain policy was scrapping that was introduced. So, I mean, are you moving quickly enough? Do you think you need to go a little bit faster?
We are moving quickly enough. In fact, I think in some ways we're possibly moving too quickly. There's no point. Well, act at haste, repent at leisure. We are not here to be a protest party anymore. We're here with the possibility of being the party of government. So therefore, we have to get it right. I think quite a lot of the policies that are being announced now are discussion starters. They're not set in stone. This is what we believe to be the case. This is what we want to see. But there are huge variables. And as was pointed out this week by Farage and Zia, the figures that the government allow us to have mean that the figures that we use are going to be variable. We believe this is to be the case because of the limited information we've got to work from. And so I think you will see, we will be setting, it's basically putting markers in the sand. Policy markers in the sand at this point. Of course, no party launches its election manifesto 3 years before an election. It'd be absurd to do so, but we can start making discussion points, marks in the sand, and this is where we're going. The letter to the renewable companies, energy renewable companies from Tice a month or so ago, that has had an impact. People are going, all right, with a warning about the auction, the carbon auction.
Yeah.
These things do have an impact. Because we're just saying, do not waste all your cash, because if we get into power, things will change. And we need to because business needs certainty. It likes stability. It likes to know what's going to happen in 4 years' time. If we happen to be these polls, it's now 105 polls have been in the lead. This isn't a blip. This is not a flash in the pan. And so it is important that we do set out some basic principles. But I don't think the absolute detail of the policies that we're presenting now will be the same as the detail of the policies we present in 3 years' time in a general action manifesto.
And do you think the public will wear that? Do you not think that you do?
Because I don't think the public is stupid.
Right.
They're not. I did a debate at the When the Light Gets In, which is the sort of the Guardian version of the Battle of Ideas.
Oh, right, yeah.
Up with Cameron House.
You did that about us, fun.
It was quite jolly. But I was there with Rachel McLean, Baroness McLean, and she was there, her Mark Littlewood, some chap from Unheard, myself, and she was saying, you can't be honest with the public because they want stuff. If you say you might have to cut welfare, they won't vote for you. You can't be honest. And then, a quarter of an hour later in the debate, we and Kemi's team are being honest with the public. Well, have it one way or the other. I think the trouble the country is in, and it may well be further in 3 years' time, and I think that's about as certain as anything can be. I believe that the British public will realise that the game is up for mass spending beyond our means. Well, I think we have, if we wish to change the world, to get our country back on track, to restore it to where it should be, then we have to be honest. Because if we lie before the election, we cannot pass legislation after the election, as this government has found to its cost. You have to be upfront, because all the machines of state will be against us.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
The Lords, the judiciary, the civil service. But if you said in your manifesto, this is what we're going to do, it's much harder for them to kick back. You've got the Salisbury Convention, the House of Lords, and the civil service. Well, in the end, if it's in your manifesto, you can say, it's in our manifesto, we have a mandate, do what we say.
Yeah.
And most civil servants will, because that is their job. But if we don't say the truth, if we're not honest with people and say the state of the country's finances, the economics, and this and that and the other, if we're not honest with people, then the civil service says, well, you didn't say it, mate, so we're not going to do it.
Yeah. Something I've been wanting to ask yourself, other members of Reform recently, is that, so this plan, I think it was you who said, let's get at least half of the cabinet directly appointed via the Lords or whatever mechanism it is. They don't necessarily have to be in Parliament. What's your take on that? Because I then wonder, well, let's assume you've got a nice majority in the Commons, just for the sake of argument. How are you going to maintain discipline in the Commons if all those MPs think, well, what's the point? I'm never going to get promoted. All the top level jobs are taken by Lords.
I think you mistake us for a normal political party.
Right.
Most of these people would not have been MPs before. It's not a career for them. It's not the same thing. We are, I use this phrase, it's become capitalized in my head. We're on the great endeavor to restore our country. So that level of what you're talking about, oh, if I don't get that, I'm going to rebel.
Yeah,
I think it will grow to be a problem in our second term if we get that far.
Right.
I think there will be a greater problem with that. But no, we are literally all in this together. We think that our country is in such a crossroads that the people who get elected, look, there will be problems, of course. I wouldn't want to be the chief whip. Of course I wouldn't.
No one wants to be a chief whip,
but the point being is that the sort of people we're trying to select, we will be selecting, are quality individuals, the like of which the country has not actually seen in Parliament for an awfully long time. And they will have their own point of view. And they will be excellent on committee. They will be good in various ways, but they will have some level of whipping issues, I would suspect, on a gamut of policies. But I think the broader issue is, one, not everybody will be in the House of Lords, though some will be. I mean, David Cameron became Foreign Minister in the House of Lords, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he got his period.
I think it's about half of the cabinet, if not more.
We shall see.
Whatever, yeah.
But I mean, you have two sorts of candidates, two sorts of people we want. You've got the people who bubble up from the membership, and there's, with 250,000 this weekend, as I say, I would think you will see a lot of really quality people coming up that we've not heard of before. We'll see them, the ones who do well at council, the ones who volunteer, and we see their work. And then there will be I suspect we'll go out headhunting and go to people who have achieved in a certain sector and achieved in a certain part of the national life and say, will you serve for 5 years? You will be able to do something and make this country better.
Right.
And appeal to their sense of patriotism. If they've done 30 years in business or in some other sector and they've been successful, and say, here is your chance to make the difference that you really want to make. Come and join us. Be our arts minister, be our transport minister, be our whatever minister. And then you have the chance to make the change that you've always wanted to do but not known how and not been able to. And that way, I think you'll be able to, I think that it will actually be a very, very welcome offer. I think that is, to a lot of people, that would be a huge opportunity. But this isn't, and we want you to be a minister for 3 terms. This isn't basically get in there, do your job.
Yeah.
And if the polling is suggested we can get up to 440 seats, the idea of needing to parachute people into constituencies is limited, because if we think somebody's good at the centre, if the party thinks somebody's good, if they can't convince a constituency that will be making the decisions over who stands for them, if they're good, surely in that number of constituencies, you'll be able to persuade one to take something. I don't think we'll need to impose, as the other parties have failed so badly by imposing candidates on constituencies. We do reserve the right in the Constitution to do so, but I think the need will be very, very limited if used at all.
Yeah, and then once, say, you get past that point, then you've got to worry about, as you said, the Whitehall machinery. I actually spoke to Jacob Rees-Mogg about this as well, because he's got experience within government. You've now got Danny Kruger. His job is really to figure out how to push all the buttons. When you look at...
You grab the levers and there's some cable there. Ooh.
Yeah. Right there. You must have looked over the last 14 years and think, blimey, that
and how many times
massive.
We've had people get ministerial roles and then go, I try to do something and I pull the lever and it had been...
Which you would surely face tenfold if you're all... basically newbies.
But I think that one of the things that we are absolutely committed to is that you have the sort of Blairite settlement, which was the constitutionalizing of politics, removing large aspects of our national life out of democratic control and into the Quango state. I'm not saying we'll close down every Quango, we probably won't, but every Quango will be responsible to a minister, and therefore the ability to hire and fire and set policies and things like this will be brought back into the democratic control. The sight of Shabal Mahmood going sentencing, and the sentencing council, nothing to do with you, we're in charge. No, you're not. You haven't been elected. You don't know.
Right.
And she won that fight. But to have to win every single fight in that way, in that public way, forget it. We have to bring all these aspects of the national life back under democratic control.
Yeah.
And so therefore, we will be addressing that problem because that's part of the problem. And then you've got judicial review and looking at how the legal system has become armoured against any given government it doesn't like. Now, the judicial review system has been in our common law processes for hundreds of years, but it has been supercharged and power boosted by our membership of the ECHR, the Human Rights Act, and this introduction of a strange and alien concept of human rights law and international law to the empirical tradition. We have had human rights in this country for generation after generation after generation. And to think that we need some tissue of European jurisprudence to tell us, I was in the European Parliament.
Yeah, we'll come to this.
Hans-Gert Pottering announced from the chair, he was the German Christian Democrat, he was the president of Parliament. He announced from the chair when the ECHR was made justiciable within the European Union law. And he said, for the first time in Europe, we have defensible human rights. Well, speak for yourself, mate. We've had them for a bit longer than you. I know you've had a bit of trouble in the last 100 years, but frankly, no. And there's this weird attitude that we don't have them. We have them. We have our liberties. We are born with them. We do not need to be granted them by some foreign court.
Do you think that will be a relatively easy sell to the public, these ideas?
That will.
Yeah, you think so?
No, yeah. I'm certain of that. And so
I'm tired of all this.
Some of these things are going to be very, very hard. We know, we are well aware this is going to be tough work. But if we are honest with the public before the election, we will be able to take the public with us and take on the vested interests of the state, take on the uni party, take on the blob, or the Augean stable that is Whitehall, and do our best to cleanse it. And there will be mistakes. Of course there will. But the thing I've always noticed about the British public when over the years is it is remarkably forgiving if you're honest in your mistakes. If you make a mess, you make a mess. You don't try and cover it up.
Yeah.
We hate the cover up. We don't mind error because we're all prone to it.
So you were was your title director of comms, one amongst many, right? So you've put out some fires in your time.
A few. But that's part of the job, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
And the thing is, the fires you put out are the ones that you and the media never heard of.
Right. Well, I was going to ask, right? So you must have seen I'm not going to ask you.
Yeah, precisely. The problem is I'm not going to go into them because guess what? The reason why I put them out is because I didn't want them in the press.
No, but the reason I bring this all up is because you've known Nigel Farage for a very long time. I know him a little bit, not quite as much as you know him. What do you think the media gets wrong about him?
He's actually very forgiving of error amongst his colleagues and all the rest of it. I mean, he'll lose his patience in the end, but this idea that he throws people away, if you look around him, almost everybody's been around for a long time. Not all. He does like new blood and shiny things like we all do. But almost everybody else, the vast number of people close to him have been there for quite a long time. This idea that he can't abide, he's like a creosote bush, won't allow anything else grow. It's just not true. Right. And he's generous and kind. In person, he's very liberal in person. The caricature is a caricature. And it suits certain agendas to have him as the caricature. He's also... No man is a hero to their butler, and I've been his butler for many years. But that being said, when he does his press conferences, he answers every question that comes to him as straight as he possibly can. In 99% of the times, he will answer a straight question with a straight answer. And sometimes he knowingly says something he believes that he knows is going to be unpopular because he believes it. And though the initial headline from that might be unhelpful, what it builds is a sense of trust amongst both the public and the media. He's prepared. Everybody accused him of being a populist. He's not. He's a vastly unpopulist policy. He takes unpopular positions, such as Brexit, when it was 2% of the polls, and because he believed it was right, went for it. Net zero, the anti-net zero thing, we've been on that for decades. It was a deeply unpopular position to take. 3 years' time, I suspect upwards of 50% of the population will suddenly be realising this isn't working for our country, and it's not changing anything for the world. And why are we bankrupting ourselves on the altar of somebody else's moral vacuum? So he is not a populist, he's an unpopulist.
Do you ever have, or did you ever have big fights with him? Did you ever?
Nothing particular. I make mistakes.
Right.
I was once rude about Saeed Abbasi, and he got it in the neck, but he defended me.
Yeah.
Though he's in that sense, he's a good boss. You'll find very few people who work for him direct have a bad word to say about him, and there's not because they're frightened they're going to be sent off to a gulag.
Do you think that the factions he's bringing together, it's a broader church reform than it was, right? So you've got Nadine Dorries with the likes of whoever, those who are more. Nigel himself has said plenty of unpleasant things about Boris Johnson.
Well, his premiership, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
Not so much about him.
No, I'll rephrase. I'll be clear about that. But the point I'm making is politically,
very personally rude. Very rarely personally rude about anybody.
Yeah,
very. Yeah, he was nice about Starmer.
Yeah.
As a man.
Yeah, but bringing in these people with slightly different ideas, particularly from the Tories, like Jane Berry.
Back in the day, in UKIP, you always had a libertarian wing and an authoritarian wing.
Yeah.
To UKIP, and I think that's still sort of, they're both conservative in a way. And if you think of what and how Danny Kruger talked about why he was joining and this sort of the torch of conservatism and things of this sort, it is a small c conservative position. Then you have the more libertarian, and Adam Holloway is more on is with Danny, I think, and then you've got the Jake Berry, but Jake. As Farage said last week, it's like if they repent.
But I was there for that conference. Yeah. But if they've seen the error of their ways or whatever. Yeah.
But equally, Jake, he was a Remainer. But after the referendum, he wasn't one of the ones who tried to throw caltrops down to stop the event.
Yeah.
He actually accepted the result. Well, to me, that's an honourable position. I wish he'd been on our side during the referendum. But it is, in a democracy, losers' consent is terribly, terribly important and valuable.
Yeah.
And he showed that. So I'm not so concerned. I was surprised. I was surprised with Nadine, absolutely. But I was also surprised with Danny, and then I shouldn't have been. He was on my wish list, but I never thought he'd come over. So I was.
Yeah. But why is that? What, because he was so close to the generic project?
Well, it's not just that. I mean, when Carswell joined the Varsity back in 2014, he was always a maverick on the outside of the Tory party. That's not Danny. Danny is very central. And though he was a rebel on a whole series of issues,
he was a shadow minister, though. Yeah.
But he's not on the edge. He's smack in the centre, and he thinks that the Conservative Party's goose is cooked, then a lot of other people in the Tory party will be thinking the same way.
So can we expect, I mean, there are rumours, but there's a Tory party conference looming.
I don't know.
Do you not know?
No, they wouldn't. No, they wouldn't tell me anyhow.
Who's on your wish list then?
There are a few, but
don't tell me that either, right?
Well, the Tory whips are on defection watch for everybody now. Now Danny's come over. Oh my goodness, Tom Tugendhat might. I don't know. Who knows? Grant Shapps. So no, that's far too much fun, isn't it? I think Farage was on LBC this morning, wasn't he? Where he was flirting about this, and Ferrari was trying to get him to say something. Of course, you're not going to say. He does like his Monday mornings.
Yeah.
We do like our Monday mornings. I don't understand. How is it that other parties haven't gotten on to these Monday mornings? It's been going on for about 2 months.
Well, it was interesting.
Every single Monday, bang.
Well, throughout the whole of the summer, that was all the
I suppose
media was interested in.
Ed Davey was trying to kick back against our Monday mornings.
Yeah.
By freaking out and fixating on the word Farage Farage is Britain. Farage is Britain. Farage is Britain, where people can pick up guns at the supermarket.
Well, yeah, he's saying your party's going to the number of school shootings are going to go up and all this. I mean, what do you make of all that?
Batshit. Utterly mentalist.
You ever met Ed, Dave? You ever spoken to him?
Once, but I doubt he'd remember. But
to the point, yeah.
It's like, okay, so the Tory party thinks we're going to spend money like a drunken sailor. Labour Party thinks that we're in favour of Jimmy Savile and paedophiles. And now we discover the Lib Dems think we're going to blow away lots of kiddies. Huh? What on earth? But it is utterly... You know how expensive rent it is in London?
Oh, yeah.
Not in those three heads. It's the cheapest rent in London. Is what Power Farage is paying to sit in Kemmy and Starmer and Ed Davis heads. It is absolutely mad.
But do you still, you must still think there's a possibility that a Lib Lab coalition is a big threat?
It could be, but that would be quite...
It's the most realistic prospect you've got to fight, surely.
Yes, I guess. But... just as Ashcroft's poll and the Mail on Sunday this week, the sum of our parts is far less than what we are independently, either the Tories and Reform, where I think that the sum of those two parts would be less. And then, of course, Labour have also got, well, if Jezbollah can get their shit together.
Well, I mean, you know,
you think it's easy to set up a new party? No, it isn't. And we've done it twice. But
yeah.
Then they've got Zach and his very, very sane Greens with really sensible economic policies that are going to drive this country forward and make us a global leader in all sorts of business.
Yeah, but what they could all do is say, look, we've got to put aside our differences. Okay, a lot of egos have to come together for this to happen.
Zara and Jeremy can't put aside their differences. Do you think the rest of them can?
Right, fine. That point taken, touche. But it is, you know, if they can at some point say, look, we have to stop Farage coalition.
If this thing in the Times today, this survey saying 60 seats, the Reform could lose 60 seats. I love that. We've got 5 and they think we could lose 60. How's your maths, mate? But what you're saying there is, I think, entirely a reasonable point. As happened at the last general election, I don't recall meeting anybody during the 24 election who woke up in the morning and thought, yeah, I'm going to vote Labour. Yeah, I'm really enthusiastic about that. They thought, how do I get rid of the Tories? And so people voted Lib Dem to get rid of the Tories. They voted Labour to get rid of the Tories. And in some cases, they voted us to get rid of the Tories. And so I think what one has to understand and learn is nobody wins a first term on their own merits. You win a second term on your own merits. Thatcher beat Callaghan because Callaghan was rubbish. Blair beat Major because the Tories were out of ideas and out of space. Cameron beat Brown for the same reason about Labour. And Starmer beat Sunak for the same reason about the Tories. None of these people won on their own merits. The second term is when you won on your own merits. And so the fact that the Labour Party has forfeited already any love that it may once have had in this great fat but thin election victory. But people still remember how rubbish the Tories were. It's a bad time to be Tory leader. And what Kemi seems to be trying to do is the traditional thing, was having been kicked in the teeth, you go away, pick them up, fix some dentures, wander off, try to work out what's going on and come back with some better ideas.
But they didn't
have.
Yeah.
They didn't have Reform sitting there saying, we're actually on it. Martin Moreland did a cartoon the other day with Kemi and Starmer in the watching game of football, and they're in the commentary box commenting on the game, and there's Farage running up the pitch to an open goal because they're not in the game. And the traditional method doesn't work in the current conditions. And so, yes, I'm sure that some Greens will vote Labour in certain constituencies, some Lib Dems. According to that poll, I think, 20-30% of Tories would vote Labour to keep out Reform? Tells you a lot about the Uni Party, doesn't it? What on earth? How on earth can anybody who's a Tory voter right now say, I'd prefer Labour than Reform?
Well, or you can use your argument earlier, which is that it's just they're making a referendum on Farage and they're saying, I'll vote for anything else, regardless of what.
And that's why Davies was talking about as he was. It's bunk. It's absurd. It's pretty close to libelous. However, that's what he's trying to do. They demonise Farage. That's what it's all about, to try and make him the bad guy. And they've tried for years, and they thought they'd succeeded. And, they haven't. The fact that we're now second in the polls in Scotland rather suggests that the great demon Farage has been, that fox has been shot. So they're trying to go back to it, and it's just not working.
Are you thinking of going for it yourself? Are you going to stand to be an MP?
Probably not. I've enjoyed my life too much.
Why not? Well, I know you said you don't want to, you enjoyed your life, but why? I'm surprised. You're so close to the machine.
I've always been. I'm more behind the scenes than in front of the scenes. Well, ask me in 2 years' time. Ask me in 3 years' time.
Yeah.
But I think it's unlikely. There's an awful lot of work to be done. There's an awful lot of tasks to be. Not everybody gets elected. Not everybody is in one of those positions. There's plenty of other jobs that need to be done and need to be done well. We need 3, 4, 5,000 of decent men and women in this country to rally around the flag and say, we need to save this country. We'd have to restore it back to what it was, to come back to something decent, so we can provide prosperity and decency to our people. And that is a massive patriotic call. It is a clarion call for volunteers and support to come out and do this, because looking at how our country is today, if we do not, then what will the country be like in the future? And so I think you will see a lot of very good people standing up and saying, I'll do it, and I'll be in my 60s by then. There are younger, brighter, more able people coming forward.
Nigel will be 70.
It won't. Not quite. Late 60s.
Late 60s, fine. Well, yeah, what are we now? Yeah,
no,
well, just turned 60. Okay, but fine. Yeah, mid 60s. Yeah,
but I mean, I will be tired and in my dotage and sort of scraping around a country church.
Well, maybe we'll return to that in a couple of years when you're the foreign secretary or something, and then I'll say, what happened there, Gawain?
You know,
you never know.
It's like the empire has picked up an fist and absent-mindedness.
What? This stuff in
Charles Street.
You mentioned Nigel on LBC earlier, so we're recording this as all this stuff in America is kicking off. Do you think
which stuff in America?
About the paracetamol being all that stuff? But the reason I bring it up,
it sounds daft,
right? But then you have the slightly awkward scenario where Nigel doesn't know, and do you think he's slightly too close? Does his Trump connection in some way compromise him?
As I said before about him saying things that aren't necessarily popular at the time, he doesn't know. So therefore he's not going to say he absolutely does. I think it's ridiculous, but I don't know. Because I haven't seen the details. I haven't seen the evidence. It sounds absurd to me, but that doesn't mean I'm right. There's many things that I think are absurd that I find I'm wrong on. So it's the nature of the beast. So it doesn't look ideal, but this is part of who he is. He doesn't, unless he knows what he's talking about, he prefers not to pretend he does. And whilst it's awkward today, the fact that he very rarely doesn't say something straight, or he very rarely cavils on something, is because he doesn't like to talk about things he doesn't know about. I'm possibly less honourable than that. I think it's absurd, and I'll say so. But that doesn't mean I'm certain. But this is part of his appeal. He doesn't always have a definitive answer. He will say something that isn't politic because he prefers to be that. Whilst it's damaging on day one, over a long period of time, that habit of honesty and being straightforward and being, I don't know, actually, I think we like that as a country, rather than always being right, always being certain, having certainty,
kind of anti-politics,
joining the crowd. The killer is shooting Roger Scruton down because somebody said he was dreadful without checking the facts. It is sometimes better to err on the side of I don't know than to be absolutely certain on something you don't know.
So come on, right, we've talked about your experience as a spinner. What's some of the crazy stuff you've seen over the years? Can we dig into some of it? We could be here all day.
Yeah, I know.
But because our viewers are going to love hearing about peeking behind the curtain a little bit on all the fun years in Brussels. So where do we start?
Where do you start? The funniest was, in some ways, was virtually the first day I was working for Farage in the House, and this fellow literally, I walked in the offices, down the corridor, this fellow pulled me into an empty room and said, "You've got to ask about the president's holiday." What? "You've got to ask about Barroso's holiday. Where did he go on holiday?" Okay. So put it to PQ, and then the parliamentary office says, "You can't write a PQ like that. You can't single out a single commissioner." Okay. So we had to write to all the commissioners. And that's how we heard about Mandelson's holidays.
Oh, wow.
Barroso had gone off with Spiros Latsis, and Latsis was getting money from the commission. That's why we managed to get a motion of no confidence voted on in the House. But there was peripheral stuff. I wasn't asking Mandelson any questions, but we had to. And there was all sorts of bits and pieces. I mean, there were times when more Eurosceptic Tories would come to me with their stories because the Tory press office wouldn't put out stuff that was damaging to the EU, that sort of side of things. And of course, there was a great deal of fun. I mean, when you have a Russian emigre who's been in the Gulag for many years, and you're told to look after him for an afternoon, it sure sakes a thirst as being in the Gulag for 20 years. There was a bottle and a half of vodka later, the two of us trying to get to he was supposed to be giving a speech. And what's more, he succeeded in giving a speech, and I know he'd drunk at least a bottle of vodka because I'd drunk half of one with him. But I mean, all sorts of stuff. I mean, you've got to remember that when I first was working there, 99, 2004, 2009, it was about 2008 that the press even noticed it existed. Yes, there were journalists there, but nobody cared. And so politicians were able to enjoy themselves outside the view of cameras, going to Les Aviateurs in Strasbourg with the MEPs dancing on the tables and God knows what else. So
so I wonder why they didn't want to leave it. It sounds so much fun.
But that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Can you imagine 20 MPs of different political parties, by the way, going out on such a night that they're all dancing on tables? And this was a regular. Month after month, this would happen. And really kicking over there. And so that sort of stuff, before the advent of the media realising that Brussels and Strasbourg existed, was a great deal of fun.
And when that happened for you and for Nigel, because when did Nigel start getting serious attention? The YouTube clips?
Yeah, it was the Dan Bragg.
Yeah, the appearance of that. Yeah, low-grade bank clerk. I remember seeing that.
You come from pretty much a non-country.
And so they all went viral. When was that? 2008, 9?
You've got to remember, up until then, Farage had been an assiduous member of the European Parliament. He had asked the right questions, he'd behaved, he'd done everything by the book and been straight, and nobody gave a hoot. And then we discovered that this guy from Belgium, and nobody ever heard of, was now our president, and had just been rocked through, and he made that speech. He was rude. Suddenly, he was a viral sensation. Suddenly, the press wanted to talk to us. Suddenly, it's like, and then you get front pages all over, and then journalists saying, "Why are you so rude?" Well, you won't listen to us for 5, 6, 7 years being sensible and serious and pointing out the failings. We're rude once, and you put us on the front pages. Why do you think we're so rude? It was basically the media created this because they refused to listen to serious stuff because it was boring. So if you and it hadn't been. It wasn't done deliberately in that way. It was just authentic, really annoyed.
But so is that when the party or Nigel learned that the fireworks and the showbiz and the razzmatazz is what...
There was that. And then the first great mistake of the establishment was Nick Clegg challenging as the then debating champion of the UK. I agree with Nick had got through and he'd become the Deputy Prime Minister, and Nick was very, very intelligent. He was a very intelligent and moral man, was dear Nick. And so he challenged the ghastly, below the salt Farage to 3 TV debates, which we leapt at with alacrity, and resulted in being pasted in 3 separate TV debates. but by the Deputy Prime Minister challenging this soi-disant Farage, it put him on the same level. And then he lost, which made Farage a far more significant figure. It gave him credibility that on our own would have been very hard to do.
So again, is it this case of underestimating
constantly?
That, right?
They've always thought that Farage has a gut and he's got a heart, but they don't think he's got much up. Not much up there. But he clearly does. And year after year after year, election after election, he's been underestimated. Even now, things like what we've just heard from Ed Davey and the number 10's Peter Kyle stuff, they underestimate him. They know not what they do. I'm sure God will forgive them, but I don't think the electorate will. The second great error was in 2016, after the referendum. If Theresa May had had the statesmanship and the decency, she would have offered him a peerage at that moment. And he would have probably taken it then.
Yeah.
And if he'd taken it then, how could he have launched the Brexit Party from the House of Lords? How could he have launched the Reform Party how could he launch a rebellion, mostly from the working classes of this country, from the House of Lords? You couldn't do it. And so a combination of arrogance and contempt and a complete lack of seriousness when it comes to things, and a lack of generosity of spirit. Farage cannot be in the House of Lords because he's done nothing House of Lords worthy. Well, he forced a referendum, and without him it wouldn't have been won. They're one of the most significant constitutional changes this country has seen in the last 100 years. Oh, but no, he can't have a peerage because he's the wrong sort of person.
And maybe it was the same scenario in 2019 as well, of giving up those seats.
Yeah, but that was different. By then he didn't want one.
Really?
Oh, he wouldn't have wanted one by then.
Right.
Absolutely not. But 16, straight after the referendum, he'd have probably taken it. And they didn't, because they were stupid and mean. They were mean. Anybody else, any other party would have got one, but not Farage, because he's...
What was it like on the night of the Brexit result? You must have been with...
No, we were...
you were in Gawain Towler for the... Yeah. So you were there.
And if you see the video, I'm standing behind him, wincing a little bit when he talks about nobody's being shot. But I know what you meant. It was an extraordinary result. I had written a "we've lost" press release.
Oh, is it still around?
No.
But I had written it on the night, did you?
I had written it's in my email, the Brexit Party.
That's be an interesting piece of history.
But it's in the Brexit Party email that doesn't exist anymore. UKIP. It was my UKIP email. And I'd written, we'd lost. And then the result for Newcastle came in, and it was 1 point. We were expecting it to be 8 points against us. And then Sunderland came in, and it was massively in our favour. And I thought, oh my God, we're going to win this. At which point we'd been round the corner at a colleague's flat. We went to Millbank Tower, and the party was going on, and suddenly, within a very short period of time, it became absolutely clear we were going to win this. And then Farage did a New Dawn, his breaking speech, and everybody had a great deal of fun.
And so you're there. Did you whisper to him and say, "Hold on a minute, things are looking different"? Well, was it incrementally? You having this discussion? Hold on.
There was a room the press weren't allowed in.
Yeah,
and the room the press were allowed in. So we were in the room the press, and these results started coming in with basically, and so the mood. The thing is, we're going to have a party, win or lose. After all that work, of course we were.
You can always go to the mob, can't you?
Was always this night. So that party was going to have a win or lose, but because the official campaign was still asleep, we then dominated the morning coverage. It was all Farage in the morning, because the official campaign.
You must have got no sleep for what? 2 or 3 days on that.
On that
occasion.
There are some infamous photographs of us sitting outside the bog looking ashen
You see, you were at the Mog, and
Later.
yeah. Once it opened its doors at 10 or 11, you were still there.
We were looking somewhat ashen. And I have a photograph of one of my colleagues, John Gill, who's now working for the party for Reform again, which I think I put out at the time, saying this is what victory looks like. And he looked like he'd actually been dug out of the grave 3 days earlier. But no, it was remarkable. It was an extraordinary moment, it was a moment where the people of this country just turned around to the establishment and said, thus far and no further. And I think with reform and with the state of the country, its economy, the state of free speech, the state of so many other things, the two-tier justice, everything else, I think at the next election we will have another moment like that.
Another big party.
I think another moment where the country turns around and say, thus far and no further. And yes, after that, hopefully another big party.
Well, you'll have to come on again and have another chat, Gawain.
I suspect that's that.
Right.
I mean, frankly, a cup of tea was rubbish, isn't it?
I was a bit surprised. Yeah, we should have had some ale or something. Anyway, Gawain, we'll leave it there. But thank you very much for joining us on the Guido Fawkes Show. Really appreciate it.
A pleasure.